Okay, just waiting for the live stream to start. Should be starting in just a second. I have no idea when it's really going to start, so who knows? And it's going. Okay, so today I want to look at, I don't really know what I want to look at. I think I'm going to look at the browser execute function because that's what I'm working on now in my course. If I go to WebdriverIO, go away. WebdriverIO. Okay, and then in the API page, there is the execute function. It's a pretty neat little function that allows you to run custom JavaScript inside the page itself. So let's take a look at that. I will start off by creating a new project, creating projects. Come on. Okay. View profiles, recording. Nope, not that one. Presenting. Okay. Oh, good. I just closed that down. That's what I wanted to do, is close my window down. You know, going well, going very well. All right, try that again. I've got a little bit of room, so maybe I can do this side by side. I want to get my terminal window up here, but I'm having difficulties with it because that's the way it goes on live streams. Okay, profiles, window, screen with the cursor. Yeah, let's do that. Nope, not that. Okay. View. Not going well. Okay, normal view. Let's do this. Ready? Shut that down. New. That only took forever. Okay, there we go. Now I will go to my home directory and I'll make a new directory. Actually, I'm gonna make a new WebdriverIO Wednesday directory for all this stuff to go into. And we'll call it execute. And I'm gonna set up my directory just like I do every time by initializing it and everything. This is really good for anybody who is new to the technology to kind of see how to walk through everything. But okay, so I'm gonna install WebdriverIO right now. Not much else. And what do I want to do? I will make a test run on the WebdriverIO webpage itself. Because why not? I guess the one problem with this is that it takes a little bit of time to install. I should just link it or something, but oh well. Okay, so that's installed. Next thing I'm going to do is edit my package.json file to get this test script updated. So I'm going to call that WebdriverIO so that when I run npm test, it calls my local WebdriverIO script for me, and it's going to see that there's no configuration file. So it will create it. I'll go through the basics just in test, and then I'll use spec, and then I want to use Selenium standalone because it's awesome. Oh, it looks like maybe Appium got added. Looks like something was added. Yes, install that. I'll go with command, that's fine. And then I'll use WebdriverIO. And while that is installing, let's see. I'll make a test directory. And then I'll create my test file. Okay, so here we go. We'll start off with the describe. Oh, my autocomplete's gone. Describe? Oh, darn. Execute test. There we go. Okay. So what should it do? Should log in the right spot. So the first thing I'm going to show with this is that execute is logging to different areas. So in the first part of our test, we'll load the URL. We'll just load a page. We don't really need to do that, but we'll do it. And then we'll say inside Node.js, and then I'll run browser.execute. And to use browser.execute, you're going to pass in an anonymous function. It can actually be like a named function as well, like that, and then pass in if you wanted to. You could also go further, which this is kind of a good idea to do if you are using execute, because it kind of helps differentiate between what's inside of your test script versus what's actually running in the browser. It doesn't need to be that big. Okay, so in here I'll say console log inside the browser. And then at the end, I'm going to, not console log, I'm going to just wait for a minute for me to figure out, to show up the log from the browser. Okay, if I wrote that test right, it should run fine. I'll run npm test, and then I'm also going to set the mocha ops dot timeout value to equal 30,000, which is 30 seconds, and that should give me enough time to do all the configuration and everything. So we're going to see inside Node.js is going to be logged out as soon as this test starts, but this inside the browser is not, because all of this is running inside the browser. It's not getting passed to. Oops. It's not. Oh, do I have one? I do. Where are you? There you are. It's not getting passed to Node. So where was my inside the browser? So it's starting a session for me. I might have to kill this because I think the version of Firefox I have is all messed up. Doesn't work with Selenium. So that's fun. So let's edit our configuration file and switch this over to Chrome. I have a lot more luck with Chrome when I run this than with Firefox. And it seems every time they update Firefox, it breaks. So that's nice. Okay. So one mistake that I pretty much always make Oh, interesting. Type exit. That's new. Type exit. Press Control C. To exit, press Control C again. Okay. Oh, I can't read. In my configuration file, I make this mistake quite often that my URL has a trailing slash in it. And so when I set the slash here, it double slashes and can cause some issues with websites. So let's try this again. Sorry, that showed off part of the debug, showed off a cool little thing called the REPL. So, okay. And we'll get into that in a minute. So here's my console, and you see here's the inside the browser log. And then, oh, here's the inside Node.js log. So two different areas. Anything run inside of your execute function gets run inside the browser. Everything else gets run inside Node.js. So what can we do with that? Well, let me try out this REPL while we're at it. So I'm going to up the timeout to a high value to give us enough time. I wonder if there's a way to disable the timeout. That'd be good to know. If anybody knows that, let me know. Anyway, I'm going to knock that up to a really high time, and then we're going to try out this little REPL and see what we can do. So I can do browser.execute in here. Actually, I could do get title, and that will run the command right away. So if I wanted to, sorry, not that one. Yeah, if I wanted to test out a command, if I want to see if a selector is working, I could do browser.element and then pass in the selector. So in this case, it would be like div. So that'll get the first div here. You could also use, keep hitting that because, okay. You could also use just the $sign. I think there's probably a menu element, so let's see. No, there's no, oh, yeah, there's no menu element. So that is pretty cool. There's got to be some sort of element there. A main nav. $sign dot main nav. There we go. Okay, so it did find it. Anyway, back to browser.execute. I'm going to pass in a function, and then I'm going to call window.alert. And I'll pass in a string of hello, and then I'll close it. So this is going to pop up, if I did it correctly, a alert message in my browser right there saying hello, which is pretty neat that you can run that. I can also use browser.execute to get other information. I can console log items. So if I open the console back up, and then run hello. That's interesting. It's like it refreshes. I think it reruns the entire script up to that point. Possibly. So if I run this again, the question is, okay, so it does have two hellos. I don't know why it knocks away the developer tools. So I'll move this over here and let's see what that does. Yeah, it knocks away the developer tools every time. That's kind of interesting. So that's just something to be aware of. I kind of wish that it would keep it. That would make it a lot easier if you do have the developer tools open, you're like looking for a selector, you can enter it there and stuff like that. But oh well. Okay, what else can we do with browser execute? Well, one cool thing is you can get let's see, let's close out of this. Okay, you can and go back into our script. That is it. So I'm going to change this over, and I'm going to get a variable back from my function. One thing that you can't implicitly do is say I declare a variable here, foo is equal to bar. I can't get access to that variable. This would return undefined because everything inside of this function is running in its own siloed. It's running inside the browser, and the browser doesn't have access to any of this data. So if I wanted to pass foo in, I would have to pass it in as a extra parameter, and then accept that in. So we'll say like message here, and then accept that as a parameter. And you can do this for multiple things. You can say 1, 2, 3. And then here you'd say A, B, C. And then if you were to log A plus B plus C, that would return, if I can do my math, 6, because it's adding A, or 1 plus 2 plus 3. So I can change that to 5, and it would return a different number and things like that. So that's how you pass information into your execute function. Passing information out is done with a return statement. So I'll return A plus B plus C. And then I can assign that to a variable. So sum is equal to browser.execute. And then we'll log out the sum. And that'll be our test. So what we should see is a couple of logs. The first one being the, oh no, just one log. And that will be the number 6 when it pops up. Sorry, no. Browser.execute returns a object that tells you whether it was successful or not. It's basically the Selenium response. And so you need to get the value from that object. So I'll do value, which is here. And the value is 9 because I changed my number to 9. Okay, I'm going to turn off that logging because it's kind of getting in the way. Log level, change it to silent. And then inside of execute, that's not really helpful to run math inside of execute because you could just easily do 1 plus 5 plus 3 inside of here if you wanted to. But what it is helpful with is if you need to get some sort of value from a DOM element inside your page. So say you want to get the, here's one example that I ran through recently was whether a video is playing or not. And using an HTML5 video element, you can, oh no, my stream health is not too good. I wonder why. Maybe if I turn that off, it'll help. Okay, sorry, getting distracted. If I've got a video element on my page, I can tell if it's running or not by using a specific HTML5 element or attribute in that element. So I'm gonna get a local server started that's gonna have my test page on it just because I'm familiar with the page. I'll go to WebdriverIO course content. What? That. And then I'm going to start my server and open this up here. And you see when I click About Us, there's this video, and I have a custom button that when I play the video, it starts playing the video. When I pause the video, it starts to pause the video. And what I want to do is validate that the video is actually playing when I hit play and it's paused when I hit pause. As far as I know, there's no way to check that value. I guess there's, sorry, there is get attribute. I just don't know if that would work. Because it's not actually setting an attribute on this video. It's part of the HTML5, it's part of the property of this video object. So if I were to open up here, come back in Chrome, if you select the element in your elements with your console open and hit $0, that's going to return the element. So I can do check things like pause. You see paused is set to true. When I play it, pause is going to be set to false now. And one thing I do want to see is if get attribute paused, what that returns. It returns null, which I think is because there is no HTML attribute on there. If I did something like type, it would match up with this type. Oops. Where'd it go? Match up with this type right here. Those match up. So that's where browser.execute comes in. We can basically run this code. Instead of using $0, because that's not going to work, we'll use document query selector. So this is a way to get an element inside your DOM via JavaScript, and we'll pass in just video. And then we're going to get, that's going to return an element, and we're going to get the paused value. So if I run this in here, you see it's basically what we did before. And then if I hit play video and I run that again, then it's going to be false because the video is not paused, it's playing. Okay, and now I want to return that value back from my browser.execute. And I'm going to change sum to is paused. And then I'll get rid of this. And then the other thing I'm going to do is go into my configuration file and change my URL to not be WebdriverIO. It's going to be my local Selenium server. And then finally, I'm going to log out is paused. And the other thing I need to do is click this About Us link. So I'll pass in a selector, text selector, checking for About Us, that the text is about us, and it's going to click it, and then it's going to check that the element is paused. And let's run this. I can get rid of that timeout. I don't really need it anymore. And here's our value is equal to true because is paused was true. Strange. Why is that? Okay. Next, we want to see, so we would do something like expect is pause value to be true in our test. I don't have chai installed, so I'm not going to use expect. I could use node's built-in assert. So I'll do this, variable assert is equal to require assert. So this is a built-in library that node comes with. And I can say assert true, I think. I think that works. Let's try it out. Assert.true is not a function. So I was wrong. I think it's like assert.ok, but let's check this out. Node JS assert. Oh gosh, that's huge. Why is it that? That's weird. Assert equal not equals okay. Okay, so that'll test that the value is truthy, which is what we want. So if I go back into my test here, and then I say okay, and I run it, there we go. We have our passing. So let's change this test to, let's call this video, about us video, and then should not autoplay on open. And then we're going to add another test down here that said should play when play button. Not clucked. We're not chickens. To clean up my test, to keep it from going crazy, I'm going to add a before each statement here. That's going to run before all my tests. And I'm going to move both browser.url and browser.click up because these are actions I want to take each time. And then I'll do my, actually I'm going to wait on that. Before I want to check the value, I actually want to click the button. So let's figure out what that button is. If I hit about us, the button is going to be called play button. It has a nice ID on it. I think I remember putting that in there so that it's easy to reference. So I will get that play button. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to check to see if the video is paused, and then I'm going to assert that it's not okay. And I think the assertion for that is just straight up not okay. Let's see. Okay versus fail. That's okay. So throws an assertion error. Oh, this is actually going to fail the test. We don't want that. I can do a couple things. I could do like that. So I reverse the value, reverse the Boolean of value. I can also do equal. So I'll check that his value is equal to false. This is why I like using something like chai, because it makes this so much easier to write out. But that's it for now. Assert equal is pause value is equal to false. And then let's add one more while we're here, that it should pause when pause button is clicked. Craziness. I'm going to click the play button, then I'm going to click the pause button, and then check that my test is, or my value is back to okay. So two new tests that go in and click some items, And let's just remove that because why not? You could even see there for a second it was playing. So that's great. A couple of things that we can do differently on this to make it a little bit cleaner. One of those is to add a new command called is video playing. So I'm going to use the add command command, which is always so much fun to say. I'm going to call it is video playing. And then all this is going to do is basically run my execute function and then return is paused.value for me. And so now in here I can say assert OK browser.is video playing. Call that instead. So it's a little bit cleaner. Same thing goes for here. And I could also set it to something like this. Get rid of that value because we return it. So either way works. It's just however you want to write your code, whether you want to add a variable or you want to just pass it straight in. So that's one way. Let's go ahead and save that and run it to make sure that it works. And then we're going to do one more thing, which is take a look at the Selector execute function to see how else we can get this. So there it plays. That's good. Okay, so in our test, we're doing document query selector, which works. But there's also a Selector execute function that I mentioned just a second ago. And what this does is you actually pass in the element element or elements of what you want to run your test on. So here I can pass in, I will move this video call to here, and then video there. And the one thing is that it gets passed in as an array, whether it's one element or multiple elements. So we need to use the array index to get to that element. So now I'm going to pass in my selector inside of the execute function itself. And let's run this one last time just to make sure I'm not lying and make sure that this works. Failed because I was lying. Undefined equals true, undefined equals true. What did I do wrong? I bet, oh, I think Selector execute actually returns, it doesn't have a value on it, which is kind of interesting. So I can just take that value completely off. And to make it even clearer, I'm just going to return that. Let's try this. So yeah, it doesn't return the JSON object. It just returns the value that you pass back. Like that. So I'm trying to, I'm not really sure what the actual difference is between the two and why one does and one doesn't. Last thing to do is figure that out because I'm interested. I guess one is a protocol and one is an action. So it's going to return the result versus, so that's Selector execute versus regular execute is just returning the request back. So it's making sending a request to the Selenium endpoint and just returning that. Whereas here it is, let's see, client-side script. Yeah, it's calling execute itself, I think, and then getting the results and checking to see if it has a value. If it doesn't, then it throws an error. Otherwise, it returns a result. So one important thing to note between the two is that one returns a result and one doesn't. So let me double check that there's anything else I want to cover with this. No, that's about it. And you know, if we didn't want to have this extra function here, I could just move it inside here. It's a little bit cleaner, or I don't know. It's a little bit more together if we put it in here. So it's up to you what you want to do. You do have a couple of returns in here, so it's kind of a little bit of nestedness. I think I would prefer to have it outside, just to specify that this function is completely outside of anything the browser is, or that WebdriverIO is doing in the browser. So that's it. I do have a course update to mention that I'm getting fairly close to finishing the starter edition. So I've added a few new videos, the wait until command, the add command, and pretty much what I just covered, which is run JavaScript in the browser with execute. I'm working on using node functionality. I may cover that in a next future episode of this. And then all I've got left are 3 videos, which is actually 4 because I want to cover the browser element command. I'm going to add that one right there and knock my video count up yet again. So that will finish off my starter edition. Ooh, that's some nice styles. Should update that. Ooh, I bet that looks bad all the way across the board. Yeah, because I had changed some stuff in here, so I need to fix this. Anyway, that's going to finish the starter edition. Once that's done, I'm going to give a week or 2 for people to get in on the early access price, even though it's not technically early access anymore. And then this price and this price are going to go up just because I've actually got some more videos out there. So I'm hoping to get this done by the end of the year. I probably won't. So I can hope, but I should have the node functionality out there by the end of this week at the very latest, and then going into this next week and stuff. So I'll be back. This is my last episode of the year. I'm going to be doing this once every 2 weeks at this time. 5 p.m. Central Time works really well for me. So I'm going to keep going with this, and that way you can get a little bit more cadence in your schedule as far as these go, because I know sometimes I do them, sometimes I don't. I think once every 2 weeks works really well for me, and then at 5 p.m. works really well because it's after work, but it's before the kids come home, which is important because it's a lot quieter and I can actually think in it. So anyway, thanks for listening. I'm going to real quick check to see if there are any comments on the dashboard. I meant to have that open and then I closed it because my stream health was not good, and the answer is I don't think there is. Nope, no comments. Okay, thanks, y'all.